Hello and welcome back to You're a Goddamn Cheetah with me, Jenna, Scorpio Moon Coach. How are you? Welcome back. So we didn't have an episode last week because, to be honest with you, I was so exhausted and I've just been kind of recovering from the summer holidays. It was my first summer holidays with April. And if I'm being honest, it was a real roller coaster. It was like some days were just, well, I was going to say heaven then, but that's not an accurate description. Just some days where I just really leaned into it, and we just had really joyful days. Obviously with some shit bits thrown in, like as per usual, but like really leaned into it. And then other days were just really fucking hard, really hard. And yeah, it was just a lot. It was a real it was a roller coaster, the summer holidays for me. And what kind of came up most, I think, was actually that I found it really hard to be in this enforced like slowing down, I think. And that, you know, for those of you kind of like building like your own businesses and self-employed, like I've been on a real like treadmill of like keep going and then to kind of have to take my foot off the gas with that, I found really hard. And then it made me really question why I was finding that hard. And I think for me personally, it was because a lot of my self-worth is tied to how productive I am. So when I'm just having to just take my foot off the gas and slow down, I found that really challenging. So there was, oh Jesus. Also, we just had, well, no, not just had, by the time this comes out, oh God, I can't even do that. My brain is like, my brain is just fully still in recovery mode from some holidays. Let's put it that way. What I was going to say is we've had this Pisces full moon, like a couple of weeks back. And then for those of you that are kind of interested in the astrology kind of context of things, we've got a lot of planets that are in retrograde at the moment. And basically retrograde, because it took me a while to understand what this all meant. But when a planet goes retrograde, it's like it's moving. It doesn't actually do this, but the planet, it's like it moves backwards. Doesn't actually do it in the sky. It's just how it appears to us. And it appears to move backwards. And so when a planet retrogrades, it's basically calling us to look inwards more. And I think we've got about 6 or 7 planets I want to say 6 planets in retrograde at the moment, and they're all asking us to look inwards, basically. And so I've just been really feeling that and really noticing what's been coming up for me over the summer holidays. And what I wanted to really share with you today is the fear that I can't talk about anything other than Untamed on this podcast. And that from doing that, from having that fear, I've actually put myself back in a cage. I've actually put my own rules and regulations and restrictions on myself by kind of putting that story in my head. And so the book I'm talking about is Untamed. So if you've just landed here and you're a goddamn cheetah, the book I'm referring to is Untamed by Glennon Doyle, who I love. The book is incredible. It's just my favorite book, and I really lean on it a lot and just kind of flip through it and read chapters here and there. And she has this wonderful way of writing, and it just really connects with me on a soul level. And so it felt really, 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 really fucking important to share this book and to just keep telling people like, this is out there, this is out there. And there's this amazing chapter, the prologue really of the book, which is called Cheetah, and is where how the podcast kind of where the name is kind of comes from. You're a goddamn cheetah. And the whole premise of the chapter really is about how we've been put in cages and how we've forgotten our wildness. And what I've realized through doing this podcast, like, because doing this podcast was absolutely like fucking huge for me to do, to put myself out there and to just like start expressing myself and being seen, felt so huge. And but what I've realized over the last week or so is that I felt really restricted almost by saying that this podcast is just about this book, even though I'm still going to be talking about it. But just me saying that story of I am only going to talk about this book, I've made myself small by putting rules and regulations around my self-expression. And I think a lot of it was, if I didn't have the framework really to be able to talk about this book, I don't think I ever actually would have ever launched a podcast, because there's no way I would have taken the leap of like, I'm just going to start talking about whatever it is that I want to talk about. I just wouldn't have had the courage to do it. And it's almost like this book has just held me and just kind of given me like the stepping stones to move into something, to move into just spontaneously kind of expressing myself in the way that I need to. So yeah, that's been a lot. So I guess this podcast episode today is just really about me owning that and just honestly sharing that with you and getting you to think about the ways that you might actually just put a cage and rules and restrictions and regulations on yourself, because no one else kind of put that story on me other than me. And it was a real like light bulb moment, honestly. Like I felt like I'd had some sort of like real epiphany of like, Jenna, this is your fucking podcast. You can literally talk about whatever the fuck you want. But I actually really remember, I think I said this out loud to Faye, the cosmic coach. Go follow her on Instagram. I love her deeply. I think I said this to her out loud after we just done Courageous AF, which was this in-person event we did almost a month ago. And my session was all around using your voice. And I was absolutely, the whole way through the session, was having this like out of body experience during it. Because it was like I kept looking down at myself talking and like leading these beautiful like women through this session, and then the whole time thinking, why are you're not nervous, you're really confident and you're like articulate and you're really expressing what it is that you need to say, and leading these women through this session. And I was just like out of body, just looking down at myself and being like, who are you? Like, what's like, oh my God, a year ago, there is absolutely no way I would have been able to show up in that space and to talk like openly and honestly and publicly in person in front of people. It would have absolutely terrified me. I would have been like, absolutely no way I can do that. And so I think that out of body experience was like it was a real like, just like I just felt so ready to be in that space and to do that. And I think it showed the real growth of just how much time and space I've given myself to grow and to move into that next version of myself. And anyway, so after the Courageous AF, talking to Faye and just being like, yeah, this is my podcast, and I could talk about whatever I want. And Untamed is this amazing, beautiful framework that has given me like the platform, like the jumping off point to like launch a podcast. I can still come back to talking about Untamed whenever I want. It will always be there because there is so much wisdom within the pages. And whenever I feel called to kind of lean into something and be like, oh my God, I read this and I need to share that with you, I'm 100% going to do that. But I also don't need to restrict myself from all the other things that are kind of coming in and that I feel like I need to share with you. And so I want to share it because I just really want you to lean into and think about the ways that, yes, society and sometimes the people we have around us, we are put in cages and we are made to forget our wildness, and we're kind of tamed and put on this like narrow like pathway that's been kind of cleared for us, and we just kind of stick to that, and we don't look outside of like the expansive nature that is like out there waiting for us. But sometimes we do that to ourselves, and that's what I was doing with this podcast. And it's been a massive like kind of realization for me. And I'm realizing that just having the awareness, I've got to that point so much quicker. I feel like this is like episode 7, I think. And I'm so happy that I've got to this point already. I feel like I've got to this point quicker, because I could have gone on like 100 episodes, I think, just really feeling like I have to stick to this book. I said I was going to stick to this book and I have to stick to this book. That's what everybody is expecting. But like no one's stopping me, or no one. I can talk about whatever I want. And isn't that just, that for me is so freeing. And the other thing that came up in Courageous AF is we did it during Leo season. There had just been a Leo new moon. My sun sign is Leo, so again, it felt super aligned. And Leo is all about self-expression, and having the freedom to just spontaneously express yourself. And for me, that has been, I'm always like, right, I need to write some bullet points. I need to have done the research. I need to make sure that whatever I'm saying is right, and I have the right information, and just like I've done my research beforehand. Like I wouldn't, like this today, this episode, I'm just fully just in flow, and I just thought, fuck it, I just need to talk about this today, and I'm just going to get it out there. Whereas before it would have been a few like bullet points and okay, this is where I'm going to go. And today I just thought, fuck it, like this, I need to keep stepping into this Leo sun sign of mine, because the more your sun sign is so key to who you are. It plays such an important role in what makes you you. So now I'm talking about astrology. So we have this, what we call the big 3. So we have our sun sign, our moon sign, and our rising sign, and they all kind of they're this magical mix that makes us. It's like our true essence, and working out these different elements. And one of the key parts is your sun sign, which most people will know, because we sometimes we call it our star sign. You know, that's the bit that you will read in like the horoscope section, basically. And I was always really resistant to having this Leo sun. I was like, no, that's not me. Because Leo for me, it was all about being seen. And you know, and this, look at this on my the side, the kind of the flower for Leo is the sunflower, which is there. I mean, look, like they're not actually in full bloom yet, but it's standing tall and just being prepared to be seen in like all its glory. And that is Leo. And I was like, oh no, not for me. Don't look at me. I've got nothing to say over here. I was very comfortable in my rising sign, which was Cancer, which is more let me nurture, let me protect, let me look after everybody else. Which, don't get me wrong, is definitely still a massive part of what makes me me. But I was just like, no, I just rejected this sun sign, this Leo sign. I was like, no, that's nothing. And I didn't realize this at the time, but it made me really miserable. And I couldn't put my finger on why. And then the more I've tuned into this sun sign, the more happier I've become, the more me I've become, the more authentically myself I've become. So it's just all of these moving parts, really. And I think this is what, just looping it back to like what's going on at the moment with the planets, with all these planets retrograding, you know, it's just being forced to look inwards more about what is the stories we're telling ourselves, and why we're telling ourselves them, and just getting curious about it. This was another thing that came up in Courageous AF. It was just like, we don't have to have it all figured out. It's okay for us to take baby steps in terms of going inwards, and just the first step is just kind of getting, it's like becoming aware that something's niggling, something feels off, or something feels wrong. And then it's like, okay, I've got an awareness of this, and now I want to get curious as to why I'm feeling the way I'm feeling. And then just being prepared to just kind of sit in the void, in the kind of uncomfortable, like, oh, I'm feeling these things and I don't know what it is, and it feels really uncomfortable, and not pushing that away. Not that uncomfortable feeling of like, oh, this is making me feel really shit, or lonely, or sad, or angry, or resentful, or whatever the emotion is. Not to actually push it away and then distract, or go on your phone, or call a friend, or like eat something, or, you know, all these kind of distraction tactics that we have, which I've absolutely used myself. But it's like, can I just sit in the uncomfort and just kind of try and work it out, even just like a little bit, just try and get one little kind of puzzle piece and try and connect the dots somewhere. And then from that, I think, is where this growth kind of happens. But it's bit by bit by bit, because the other thing I'm realizing is that it's just slow growth is everything. It's I always, with working, doing this like inner kind of work, I want to rush through it so fucking quickly. I just want to get it done. I just want to have worked it all out, connected all the dots, put the whole puzzle together, and been like, oh right, okay, I know what this is, tie it in a bow, done, tick, that healing box is done, move on to the next one. And it just doesn't work that way. It's just the growth and the healing, it happens really slowly, and because I think it's supposed to. We're not supposed to rush through this. So if you're on a journey of starting to do a bit of inner child work, or any sort of like inner work, know that this is just a reminder for you that it's okay for you to just go really slowly with it. and to just know that little baby steps is all you need to take. I need that reminder all the time. Because the other thing is, I think a majority of people that are listening are parents or are mums. And I feel like I might have spoken about this before, but doing inner child work, doing like inner healing work whilst mothering, whilst parenting, whilst like navigating just day-to-day logistics of what it is to be a parent these days is fucking hard work. It's really hard work. So that's the reason, I think, why we need to also go through it slowly. It's like we just need to honor the place where we're at the moment and realize that it's okay to take our time with it. It's okay to take our time with it. So yeah, where is this all going? It just felt so important to just like fucking own this today and be like, I am not afraid to break out of the cages that society has put around me, but also I'm not afraid to break out the cages that I'm putting myself in, and to get aware of that. I think the awareness is massive. So whenever you spot yourself like either a cage or some sort of restriction that's been put around you by society or by someone you're with or someone in your like that is in your kind of in your world, getting the awareness of that, but also getting the awareness of when you do it to yourself is huge. And celebrate that you have the emotional intelligence and you have done so much work on yourself already to become aware of this stuff. Like I'm really proud of myself that I actually figured it out, and I realized I was doing that to myself. So just really celebrate all the moments when you get it, when you all of a sudden become aware of like, oh, that's a sneaky little pattern there, oh, that's the story that I'm telling myself, and you're like, oh, I caught myself. And then when you catch yourself, then it's like, get curious, why am I doing that? Because why I was kind of so set on this podcast just being the chapters of Untamed was because it was safe. It was safe. Originally, when I launched the podcast, it didn't feel safe to me to do a podcast like at all. But by having the safety and kind of like, it was almost like I had Glennon with me, of like holding my hand through these podcast episodes, being like, it's okay, you've got this, you've got this, you've got this. Like it's kind of pushed me out into like the podcast world, into like using my voice, into like expressing myself. And now I've realized that I was like clutching like Untamed for dear life, of like, oh my God, I cannot step away from this book and like lean into what it is that I've got to say. And that's, yeah, like I said, it's been a huge like mind-blown like light bulb moment for me, is realizing that this is my podcast and I can talk about whatever the fuck I want to talk about. And if you're out there like in the same kind of pickle or as me, or like in some sort of situation where you've kind of, you want to pivot or you want to change and you're like, oh my God, I can't, like, get curious about why you're telling yourself that you can't do that. Because it might just be that it's just you're actually the one that has put restrictions and rules and regulations around something and put yourself in a little box, and therefore you can be the one to just set yourself free. So that's what I wanted to share with you today. And I want to leave you, because I did actually, before I came on to record this episode, I went back to the Cheetah chapter in Untamed and just like reread it, and I was just like, just go back, like get back into the zone of like how you were feeling, because that chapter in itself, like that's the one for me that just really hit me, and just I had such an emotional response to it, because it was like, it was me, that chapter was like forcing me to remember my wildness, and it was like she was just just like just perfectly articulating how I was feeling in that moment, which was trapped and not living the life that I wanted to. And it was like she was just reading like what was in my heart, what was in my soul, and it just, that's why it spoke to me on such an emotional level. So I was like, I'm going to go, because I'm moving into this space of just spontaneously like just self-expressing myself, and I'm going for it. And so I'm going to go back to that chapter, and just for like literally the start of the book, who it's dedicated to is Glennon's daughter Tish. And I just want to read you this quote, because again, it just hit me like whenever and also I just remind you as well, whenever things hit you and you have an emotional response to it, please listen, please listen, because that emotional response, it's telling you've had a connection with something there, and you need to tune in and listen. And so this quote is what gave me that emotional response today. Okay, so the whole book, the whole of Untamed, this is the dedication for it. For every woman resurrecting herself, and for the girls who will never be buried. That's who Glennon is dedicating this Untamed book to. And I am 100% a woman resurrecting herself day after day. Like, layers kept getting peeled back and new versions present themselves. I'm constantly resurrecting myself. And I've just, the more, and I know if you're listening to this podcast episode now, I know that you are also resurrecting yourself too. And I know that you have done so much work already to peel back layers and to reveal new versions of yourself. Otherwise you wouldn't be listening, you wouldn't be here. I know that. And the reason we're doing this for ourselves, but we're also doing this for our children, whether you have girls or boys or not, we're doing this for our children, because the more we can resurrect ourselves and peel back these layers and reveal more of this true authentic self that we have, the more that we can allow our children to do the same, and to not have to go through it. I mean, let's face it, our children are 100% going to have to be doing all of their inner work. They're on their own, they will be on their own journey as well. But it's like, it doesn't have to be the same patterns that we've had to work through, you know. And yeah, I don't want you to think that this podcast is not going to not be talking about Untamed, because I can't not talk about it. But I've realized I also just need the freedom and the platform to just also spontaneously say what I need to say as and when I need to say it. And because I need that freedom of self-expression. And I feel like when I can just freely self-express myself, every time I do that, I'm giving you the permission to do the same. And likewise, every time that you just break free from a cage, like express yourself, speak your truth, you give the permission slip for all those around you. And sometimes we don't even know who's listening to us. We don't know all the time who's watching us, but they are. they're out there watching you. Whenever you speak your truth, someone is out there. It is affecting someone, and it's giving them the permission slip to do the same. And I think this is why it's so important. So important. Yeah. Okay. I'm going to leave it there. Oh, thank you so much for listening. I love this space so much, and yeah, I'm excited for where this podcast is going to go. And I'm sending you all so much love and so much gratitude for listening. Thank you so much. If you're not already, come follow me on Instagram at Scorpio Moon Coach. We've got some exciting things coming up. Rebirth of You starts this week. September 14th, we're starting. Rebirth of You is my group course, which, oh my God, it's my baby. It's where it's a combination of all these magical tools that I have used over the past 18 months, 2 years, I would say. It's moon magic. It's there's astrology in there. There's love languages. There's inner child work. There is so much packed into this, and it's my 4th time round now, of teaching it. So many amazing women in there already, which again is just blowing my mind, all ready to just take up space. The rebirth of you is this real catalyst if you're ready to actually just start putting you first. If you're kind of in a space of like wanting more, and you feel like you're at the bottom of every list and you're just drowning in what everybody else has got going on, and you're very much in that, let me like protect, let me nurture, let me like just check on everybody else, and you just are feeling really lost in yourself and just craving time and space for you, the rebirth of you is your jumping off point. That's the catalyst there. It's a time commitment for you for 5 weeks where we dive into all of these different like magical tools for you to explore and then to just use. And it's just, it blows my mind, the women that have already been through it. And again, that was just a massive, it was a massive chapter of my life last year, launching Rebirth of You, because it was just jumping in to this space of, I've got something to say, which is important, and listen, like it was a real, like that was a big turning point in terms of my self-expression. And if you're feeling like you need that space for you to start to put the puzzle pieces together, to start to connect some dots, to start to just getting some awareness of what it is that you want, what it is that you need, and then we kind of give each other space to get curious about that, the rebirth of you is your thing. So we start on September the 14th. Link is in my bio, and it'll be in the show notes here if you want to jump in on September 14th, which is a Thursday. Oh my God, I would love it. I would absolutely love it if you would join me. So thank you so much. I love you. And I will see you next week. Bye.